Hi everybody, welcome to this video solution tutorial where we're going to be looking at task 1 of the containment exercises in Mr. Musi. Containment is really where an object contains another object, or maybe even more than one other object. Okay, so let's go down to the exercises and we're going to look at task 1. A hotel has a name, an address, and many guests. Digital hotel objects store guests in an array. Each guest has a name, a bill amount, and a payment indicator, which is true or false. And this is set to false when a guest object is constructed. So our challenge is to design the hotel class and the guest class. Note, the hotel objects accept a name, an address, and an array of guests as parameters when constructed. Let's start with the guest class. Class guest, we're going to define a constructor method, and we know that every guest has a name, a bill amount, and a payment indicator. So let's set up some private variables to store the data in those parameters when we construct a guest object. So hopefully the code that I'm writing here makes perfect sense to you. Let's call this indicator, and we're just going to assign that to the parameter indicator. Okay, and we're going to have to set up within the class other methods which will allow us to change that data or access that data. So let's just set up some accessor methods. And that will return self dot underscore underscore name. And we're just going to repeat that 2 times. We'll do get amount, and we'll do get indicator. Okay, so these are our accessor methods or get methods. And let's also set up some set methods just in case we want to change something. Okay, I'll make one for set name, but it's unlikely that we would want to change a guest's name. Who knows? Let's do it anyway. So with the set, we're not returning anything, we're changing data. So self._name will be equal to this new parameter here. And let's do the same for amount. And then we'll do the same for indicator. So we've got quite a few methods here doing very simple things to help us manipulate data stored in any guest object. Okay, and let's just test our solution to the guest class to make sure everything is working. I'm just going to create a guest object, and I'm going to give it a name, an amount, and an indicator. We should set the indicator to false when a guest object is constructed. So let's just do that as well. So let's say Bill Jones has checked in for a few nights. He's going to pay $1,200. He hasn't paid yet. So the payment indicator is false. Now let's just check G1, which references a guest object. So G1 has access to all of these methods. We can just call any of these methods. So let's just call the getName method. And let's change something. What should we change? We'll do setName. Okay, well, I've called that setName. That should be setAmount, shouldn't it? Okay, set name, set amount, set indicator, get name, get amount. Okay, that's good. Let's let's change the amount of G1. We made a mistake with his bill, so we're going to set a new amount, and it's going to be 3,000. Sorry, Bill. That's just the way it goes. And let's now print the data. G1.getAmount, just to see if the update occurred properly. In fact, let's copy and paste that code before we make the change and after we make the change. So it should say 1200, and then we change it and we should see 3000. So let's just run the code and see if that does what we think it should. And it didn't do it. Bill 1200, that should say 3000, but it didn't work. What's going on? G1.setAmount, self.name equals, no, self.amount, what am I doing? Oh dear, this is terrible. I feel like such an amateur right now. That's the problem, of course, of copying and pasting. Okay, let's run it again. There we go. So the constructor gave Bill a payment amount of $1,200, but the receptionist updated that after he changed rooms or something. Maybe he went to the penthouse suite, who knows. Okay, so everything's working. So I'm just going to get rid of this code for the moment, and let's go back to the design. Now we're going to design the hotel class. A hotel has a name, an address, and many guests. And the guests are, of course, guest objects, and they will be stored in an array inside a hotel object. This is containment. So let's have a look at that. Class hotel, and we're going to define our constructor method. Every hotel has a name, an address, and many guests. So name, address, and let's call it guest list. Now we have to understand that the guest list is going to be an array. Okay. Now we could put some validation code here to ensure that it's an array. We're not going to do that today because that will overcomplicate things. We're going to assume that this is an array of guest objects. So again, we're just going to assign all of those parameters to class variables. And self.__guest list will be assigned the parameter guest list. And let's also define a get method. I'm just going to do get guest list. I want to see if that's working. That's going to return a reference to an array of guest objects. That's really what we're designing here. Okay, so we're going to be testing this in a moment. So return self.__guest list. Okay. Now I could, of course, add some more methods here: get name, get address, set name, set address, set get list. I'm not going to do that right now. We'll get there later. Let's test the design by constructing some guest objects, assigning them to an array, and then constructing a hotel. So let's write a main program here. We'll construct a guest. And this is going to be, let's go back to Bill Jones. Not sure who Bill Jones is. The payment indicator is always set to false on construction. G2 is another guest. This is, of course, Alice Nguyen, the famous socialite. I think I pronounced that correctly. And she stayed for a week and spent quite a lot of money. She hasn't paid yet. And guest 3, of course, is our favorite superstar, Mr. David Beckham. And he occupied the penthouse suite for a week. And he hasn't paid yet. Now, I'm going to create an array called guests, and I'm going to push those 3 guest objects into this array. Now, there are many ways to do this, but this is quite an easy way to do it. Now that we have an array of guest objects, we're ready to construct a hotel. So let's do it. I'm going to say Hilton is a new hotel object. Is that the name of the class? Yep, hotel. So this is a hotel constructor method that we're calling. Every hotel has a name, an address, and a guest list. So the name is Hilton Hotel. The address is Park Lane, London. And the guest list is this array here. We're going to push this into the hotel object. Guests. Brilliant. Now to see if that's worked, let's call the getList method of the hotel class. Okay, so let's just set up a variable to store what's been returned. So I'm going to say current guest list will be assigned our hotel object variable, which is called Hilton. Because that's a hotel reference, Hilton is a hotel reference, it can access any of the methods within the hotel class. And the one that we want to target is getList. Get guest list. And now let's use a for loop to loop through this thing that was returned. Remember, this is an array. It's an array of guests. Okay? So let's loop through it. This thing that I've called current guest list. And we're just going to print out current guest list I. Now remember, current guest list I is a guest object. It's an individual guest object inside the array. So now we should be able to access any guest object method. So let's go for the getName method. And let's see if that works. Boom, it worked. We constructed some guests, we pushed them into an array, we used that array to help us develop a hotel object. Then we looked inside the object and grabbed the guest list and assigned it to a variable inside our main program. And then we looped through that to see what each guest in the array's name was. So have a think about that solution and see if you can understand what's going on.